Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it.
Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with something a little bit different. This is Cradle Control, a build put together by Hello Newton. I will start with, I do think it's correct if you do want to try out a new list that someone's been working on, don't change it. Don't change the list. Play with the list, see how you like it, and then potentially even reach out to them for feedback if you feel like something is off. I did change it, but the only change I made was I took out the 4th Springheart Nantuko for a Grist, because I really enjoy playing with Grist, and I've been having a hard time online with Psychic Frog, so I really like having just another way to deal with Psychic Frog in the main deck. So if you do want to play the list, I would switch out the Grist for the Springheart, play it out, see how you like it, and go from there. But essentially, this is a deck that either wants to win through Natural Order for Atraxa or Craterhoof. You also have ways to win through just big creatures in Wight of the Reliquary or Elvish Reclaimer. Obviously, you can go wide with Springheart Nantuko in this list as well. And then you also do have the Grist Ultimate if that comes up. So we'll see how that goes. I would say that for the board, one thing that I really like, and I really like this with Maverick as well, is that everything here is pretty much free or 1 mana, because you want to have really early interaction against the unfair decks, and even against the more fair decks, having things like Fatal Push is really good here as just the ability to interact with your opponent a little bit and not stray away from your main strategy too much. Collector Ouphe is probably the only card here that does cost more than 1, and obviously that's just a great Green Sun's target against a bunch of decks. I didn't play Snuff Out, and I assume the reason that Newton didn't play Snuff Out in the sideboard is that right now there's a lot of black creatures that we actually care about. Psychic Frog being one of the newest ones, but Grief, Troll, etc. It's a little bit tough to have sideboard slots for removal that don't actually hit the main threats in Legacy. So I think Fatal Push is a really nice kind of middle ground in having removal in the board that's still cheap, still effective against most online threats, while also not, being too dead against many creature decks. Maybe Eldrazi, but they still have, the 4 CMC new Eldrazi, so I should say Cloudpost, but yeah, I'm really keen to see how this goes. We have Talon Gates in the mana base as well as a way to interact with our opponent's creatures, which is great. You can also phase out your own creatures if you want to keep them safe from removal, which is nice. I believe Talon also works against like verdict effects. So if you have an Atraxa and something like a Reclaimer or a Wight in play, you can potentially save it. This deck is a Cradle deck, of course, so I really want to move towards Cradle in the early games, and having Springleaf or Springheart Nantuko and also Grist to go wide a little bit with creatures is really nice for Cradle. And also Springleaf or Springheart is pretty sweet, because if you go turn 2 Springheart and then turn 3 fetch into Grist, you get that token to throw away really nice, which is really cool. Hey Dave, hey Chum, hey Matt Sol, very cool to see you in chat. I appreciated you, Matt Sol, for reaching out and letting me know that there was a later version of the Newton list, which we see here, not the one that Dan Neely played a little while ago. And also really liked your take on Maverick that you posted in the Discord recently, I think overnight, which is cool, so very cool. But yeah, I'm on 3 Springs, just making room for the Grist, but I think it's correct to just go with Newton's list of the full 4. So I will preface with that. If you take Newton's list through a league, take the 75 through a league, don't make changes. But I do have, a soft spot for Grist, so apologies. Here we are. It's really nice as well. I think there's something to be said about if you are going to play green in Legacy or play somewhat of a fair deck, always have some sort of I win button, which is a big reason why I love playing green-white depths over green-white Maverick or Abzan Maverick, is that you have the 20/20 to get there. And in this deck, of course, Natural Order is just a great way to kind of win the game pretty quickly, especially if you're up against another combo deck. Being able to Natural Order on as early as turn 3. I don't think there's a turn 2 in this deck. I think the turn 2s are the faster versions, but I guess we'll see as well. So yeah, it's really nice. It kind of feels a little bit unfair, which I would say Natural Order is, but essentially the list itself, I would say, is quite fair in the realm of things. So let's go ahead. This goes Wiltron. Very cool to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've been enjoying depths recently, or if not, other decks. Bestow is interesting. One question I do have is, and I think I saw this at the Pro Tour, say we're a little bit scared of Orcish Bowmasters and our opponent already has an Orcish Bowmaster in play. I believe I can enchant their Orcish Bowmasters, making it a 2/2, which then means that although I can't pay the 1 and a green to get a copy of the enchanted creature, I still get the 1/1s. I believe that's a way you can bestow Nantuko so it doesn't die to -1/-1 removal, but also still gives you the 1/1 green insect token. I think that's how it works. Hey, Mistress. I did forget to add Nadu. I do really like the takes as well. I saw Testicular playing a Nadu version of kind of Glimpse Elves, which looked really cool. But I don't know, something just doesn't draw me towards the most broken decks of the format. Or not even the most broken decks, but I'm typically someone who doesn't like jump on, you know, the Ragavan metagame, the Dreadhorde metagame, etc. Yeah, I wonder if they say it on Gatherer. Here we go. There we go. So, if you don't pay 1 green, either because you simply choose not to, or because Springheart Nantuko isn't attached to a creature you control, you still get the 1/1 green insect token, which is great. So that's a good little thing to do if we are afraid of some sort of -1/-1 effect. Or potentially even Sheoldred's Edict? No. Yeah, I guess if you're worried about Sheoldred's Edict, you could bestow your opponent's creature and they would have to get rid of their own creature to get rid of your bestowed Springheart, which is cool. This isn't a game for fun. Yeah, I think Depths is still really good. I always felt good on Depths against the Grief decks because a lot of your cards are interchangeable. The consistency is really nice within your spells. And obviously most Grief decks play Wasteland, but you do have a lot of play there. Okay. Interesting hands. So we do have like once to potentially find a green source to play turn 1 Reclaimer, and then we have Endurance open for some sort of unfair deck. But there's no real plan otherwise. Like we already have the Cradle, but we don't have sort of like the Green Suns or the Natural Order. That it can be a little bit tricky. And obviously if we don't find the green source, it's a little bit awkward with our mana here. Another good thing to note is just with Endurance, and that when you evoke it, you can always tap the Cradle for an extra mana before it leaves the battlefield. I'm not a fan. I think I want to have a hand with like a bit more of a plan. Oh, there we go. Apologies. There we go. I am gonna mulligan this. Okay, this is actually much better. We have a pretty nice hand. I'm probably going to bottom the forest here. And then we have, hopefully, Once Upon a Time for a 1-mana Mana Dork. We then have open the Endurance with Natural Order if we need to Endurance pitch. But then also just have a nice plan of turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Hold Up Endurance, turn 3 Natural Order. I'm also happy to keep the fetches over the basic because the fetches could also be the Surveil Land or Dryad Arbor. So there's a bit more resource to these. I'll start with once and then I'll fetch. Okay. We find Reclaimer, which is pretty nice. Would have loved to have seen that that Mana Dork, but that's all good. Also happy to start off with Windswept. There is definitely crossover between depths and elves in terms of the early creatures you play and the early mana you play that our opponent could potentially think we're on depths. Interesting. Eldrazi. Okay. This looks like Dismember. Okay. Well, thankfully, this is a pretty sweet hand. The one reason that I kept the Lair as well is that you can make this a creature and then Natural Order if you really want to. Oh, I also made a mistake there. If you control 2 or more other lands, this comes into battlefield tapped. So I should have played this and then gone for Green Suns. Because obviously now we have to get a green source off the top to be able to Natural Order. So that was a pretty early mistake, and really one where I was just rushing, and I shouldn't have been rushing. But I feel like Natural Order is a pretty great plan against Eldrazi. Like Thought Knot is probably the best card they could have here off a Spirit Guide potentially, or a Mox Diamond. Ah, wow. Okay. Well, I guess now the Lair's online. Eldrazi is pretty sweet. If you wanted to look up a list, I will look up Maxtortion's list that's been running around. I believe he made a challenge top 8 with it and a few other things, which is cool. I think here we want a Lair. There's a Lair into Wight of the Reliquary, because there's a world where we get to untap, draw a green card, get rid of the Endurance by pitching it, sacrifice it to Wight to get Cradle, and that'll give us the extra mana. Ah, these do enter tap. That's a great point. Another Dismember. Okay. So there is a world that if this was a 5/5, we could get rid of the Endurance if we really wanted to make this a 6/6, but there's nothing we can do here, so. If this isn't Thought Knots here, we're in a pretty great place, because there's a lot of really good top decks here. But this is going to be tough. So this is a really cool new Eldrazi that gives itself haste, but also anything else coming into play. So I guess we'll be taking at least 6, 7, 8 here, going down to 10. So we could have held up the Endurance as a 3/4 against the 3/3, but knowing they had Dismember, it's a little bit different. Nice. So we can't fetch for Dryad Arbor, which is fine. Nice. Natural order's cool. Alright. So we can get... Talon's interesting. We're definitely getting... Ooh, another natural order. This doesn't come into play tapped, which is good. I believe here we're going to go land. I don't think it's another natural order we want. I wouldn't mind the Green Suns as even a Green Suns for 2 for Reclaimer is a 3/4, which on this board is great if things go haywire. And then it's probably just a Ignoble. Talon. Ignoble. Green Suns. Hey Leonard, welcome. Nice. I guess if I really wanted to, I could have got the Windswept and then fetched to then play. But this is fine. I don't think I played the Talon here. Yeah. That was a consideration. No, obviously we've played a land this turn. This is just highlighted because of the activated ability. Yeah. Alright, they have one card and their land drop wasn't Caracas, which is fantastic. A way out of this could be attack with both and then dismember if they have another one. But it's really cool to see Eldrazi get kind of injected back into the format. It's sad to see though, I think Eye of Ugin's like a $100 card now. Because it wasn't included in the commander decks that were both Eldrazi driven. Okay. I don't mind playing Hierarch and then just Green Suns for Elvish Reclaimer. I don't think there's a world where I need to go for double Exalted Creature here. Yeah, $100 is brutal. I mean, the lifelink here is just absurd. Really gives us like the top, even a Thought Not Seer, like, and obviously Vigilance as well. It's just so strong. Very lucky to be on the play, and for our opponent not to have a Thought Knot. Obviously, like double Wasteland, double Dismember is great, but this deck has just so much resilience that it's not too hard to get to 4 mana. So Eldrazi. I do like the Fatal Pushes. I'm not too sure on the Force of Vigors. I'm not too sure how typically... Let's go to our friend Max. So I would assume that the list is very similar, if not identical, to Max's list that has been performing really well. So I would assume it's going to be a little bit different because they were playing Dismember in the main deck. So I can see Flute probably coming in. Probably Dismembers, but they've obviously got other things in the sideboard. I think the real test here is just being as quick as possible. Yeah, I think that as well. Potentially some endurance, like potentially the endurances. Endurance are really nice bodies, so I don't mind having the one, but I don't mind the pushes. I think that's really it. Everything else is pretty good. There's no, I guess like potentially we could take out a Bog. They are a Wasteland deck, so there is consideration that this is just a land drop. But on the draw, I don't mind that. Yeah, the Ouphe is definitely pretty interesting as well. Yeah, I'll actually like, especially seeing Mox Diamond. But I think, again, it's kind of how can we get to natural order as soon as possible? This is a really nice hand because we have Forest to kick us off with acceleration. And then we have a Ouphe turn 2 if it's relevant, or we can just double spell in both Reclaimer and Wight, which is nice. I think against Eldrazi, just getting everything onto the board as quick as possible is really good. Opponent's gone to 6 cards. Throughout Worlds, if we draw a land, I wouldn't mind just leading on the Bayou, because even if they wasteland us, we would have a land to follow it up with. And it would mean they wouldn't be casting Thought-Knot turn 2, most likely. So if we draw a land... yeah, pretty happy to lead on Bayou. Like even, say, Dismember into Wasteland isn't that bad because we have Forest into Dryad Arbor. And honestly here the Thought-Knot's not that bad. Reclaimer and Wight are very similar. It's probably the Green Suns as they might think of Grist. But we're still going to double spell this turn. Most likely. Hey Big Boss Pizza Sauce, love the name, hope you're well, thanks for the follow. I think it's the Green Suns because it's unknown as well. Once you know that I have Reclaimer and Wight and Ouphe, you know about them. I take the Reclaimer, okay. Hey Ammo, thanks for the follow. So here we want to play the Lair so it doesn't come in untapped. But then it's pretty interesting. So I kind of like keeping the Green Suns for a Grist. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to make natural order off the top as live as possible. So if we play the Lair, we have 3 mana. We can play the Wight. And then if they say Wasteland us or get rid of the Noble Hierarch, we'll have 2 lands, 3 lands. So there is a world where I don't mind like Wight into Green Suns for Dryad Arbor, which gives us more creatures for natural order, but also more mana for natural order. But then we obviously lose the utility of Green Suns, not being able to go for something like removal. Because I think next turn if they have the like the haste creature, that would be pretty brutal. Hey XJ, good to see you. Win with Wight. Could also go with Dryad Arbor this turn into Wight. I think we're just going to go with Lair. And then I don't mind Wight. Okay. So this turn most likely just Dryad Arbor, Collector Ouphe, pass. Yep. And then I think it's just going to be probably block with Dryad Arbor and then sack it to go and get Cradle. Let's try to build the Wight up as well at the same time. Hey Drog, welcome. Hope you're well. I wonder if they go after the Lair here. They don't. They actually allow the block as well, which is nice for us. look like this. And then I actually think because they have the Wasteland, I'm happy to sack this and probably just get the Mortuary. Because it's coming in tapped anyway. See if we can find Green Suns or Natural Order. This could also grow the Wight as well. Interesting. We don't have the black mana for this, so I think we just bin this. Which is nice because it makes the Wight a 4/4, which means next turn if we play the Dryad Arbor, we could block with the Wight and then before damage sack the Dryad Arbor to make this a 5/5. Yeah, it's always nice to change things up. And I do really like the gameplay of this deck. Natural. Come on. What if they think about it like an upkeep dismember? Which is interesting because that definitely makes me think about dismember, which makes me think about less of, you know, blocking with the Wight. We also have Talons to think about, just to keep some damage off the board. Phasing also doesn't cause anything to re-trigger, which is nice. There's currently 3 lands in the bin, so if I do want to once here and find a Reclaimer, I want to play the Forest. But if they want to dismember in response, I think I'm happy to start with once. Okay, Nantuko's pretty solid, but we would need another mana. But Springleaf is a really nice way to just keep this at bay for a little bit. The Ignoble Hierarch is also quite nice. They have 3 cards. And we most likely know about a dismember. It's definitely not the Wight. Springleaf would be casting next turn, probably after getting rid of the Dryad Arbor for Cradle. So I don't mind this. Play the Dryad. I don't think I'm winning this because I attack for 3 here. Because if they play the Trample Haste guy next turn, I think I might have to block with it. Wow, no attacks. That's really interesting. So they're actually scared of the Wight being a 5/5. I could see Collector Ouphe going here. I kind of like the mana of Dryad Arbor. Of course, this has Vigilance. Apologies, I should have definitely attacked. Yeah, that's on me. Nantuko on Arbor is pretty sweet. Oof. Okay. Okay, so if we go Dryad Arbor, Lair, play Springheart. Nice. And then we get the extra creature. I think we probably should have bestowed. I think I'm just trying to get there with Natural Order as soon as possible. Could I? No. Why does it cost 2 more? That's really weird. Okay, yeah. I think bestowing there is, yeah. We do have the mana for it as well. My only thought was, because even if they dismember, say, Dryad Arbor in response to the bestow, you still get the creature comes into play, right? I don't think this would go to the graveyard. That was my only consideration. Natural order pretty good. But yeah, that was my only question. If you bestow a creature and they remove the creature in response, does this then just go on the into play as an enchantment, or does it go to the graveyard and fizzle? Oh wow, okay. So that's pretty busted with bestow. Interesting. It's not like Rancor. Nice. That's cool. I do like the yeah, just the gameplay of Cradle is really nice. It's a little bit like Turbo Depths in a way. You can take your time with every every game. This is a pretty sweet hand. Obviously very good against any sort of grief. We have like Misty into Dryad Arbor, and then obviously once into another land, so pretty happy to keep this. If we draw a land here, that's pretty nice. Play the Misty. I do want to play around Days to some extent with the once, just to find that extra land. Get the Verdant. And then I actually, because we are a little bit light, I don't mind us getting Forest here. Delta. So if they're on like Entomb, Animate Dead, or Reanimate, we don't have a great play. So if we go turn 1 Noble, then we can go turn 2 Reclaimer and also Green Suns for another, say, Ignobled, just to get to natural order quicker. If we go turn 1 Reclaimer, we can then still go turn 2 Noble, but we're probably holding up Reclaimer, so we're not casting turn 2 Noble. So if we want to stick to our plan, it's probably Noble this turn, but if we want to think about like what they're on, potentially a Reanimate style strat, then I think it's Reclaimer as like go off next turn, or else we have Bojuka Bog open. But I think in the blind, I'm happy just to go towards natural order, because that one full turn is pretty huge. But yeah, unfortunate not to have a endurance. Grief, Force of Will, Animate Dead, and Underground Sea. Okay. I don't mind. It's tough because even if we Grist here and get it into play, like if they have Force but no other green card, we know they have Animate Dead, so just get back the Atraxa. So I think here... I didn't really need to fetch, but... I don't mind Mortuary into another card. That can go in the grave. Just keep building out mana. Honestly, if I'm building up mana, I might as well play around days. Maybe not. We know they have Force, so maybe we actually want the days to hit this, so that if we draw land, they have to force the natural order, and then we have another one. Yeah. Okay. I do like the Faerie Macabre here as just extra interaction. The baubles are interesting. Like Daze and Force to some extent is quite nice, but I'm not too sure if baubles should just be for combo. Hey Ramar, welcome. Definitely a tricky one to board against. Like if they're going after our creature, like I would say they go after our creatures pretty aggressively, that maybe we don't want to have two natural order targets. The endurances are great, the onces are great, especially against the wastelands. Hey, very cool to hear. I can definitely see why they are trophy leaders. I feel like if I play like a fair matchup, like you know, go down on the natural orders, it's probably more in their favor. They're probably the better fair deck. Yeah, that's very cool to hear, Ramar. I love it. I think I will play the bauble on the play just because it gives some insurance against endurance, because I am most scared of their graveyard, and I do like Vexing Bauble as like a turn one play if they are going to hold up, you know, Entomb again into Reanimate or something like that. It also turns off Grief, of course, so I think Vexing is a definite. But for me, it could just be like a little bit of a trim here and there. Yeah, like the pushes are nice against the frog. We do have the Grist. Just trying to think of like a nice balance between staying on our plan of natural order while also giving them some play. Maybe 5. Maybe 5's too much. Okay. This is a one-lander with Reclaimer, with Endurance, but I think it's just a bit too too tough for us. Double Dryad Arbor is pretty brutal, but could keep this bottom a Dryad Arbor. Cast the once. Find a Verdant. And here we are just going to go for Forest. Play Bauble. Okay. Hey TJ Fade, welcome. Hope you're well. Okay, that's pretty... Okay. Doing pretty well. It's pretty cold. Should have won a jumper, but we'll see. Yeah, just Entomb again. Yeah, some cards online I've seen messing up a little bit, like Snuff Out here. It's kind of funny. So now it's a case of finding Grist. Reanimate, Wasteland, Psychic Frog, go for the throat. Brainstorm Archon. I don't think we have a great out. Like Archon and that we know they have the reanimate. Tough. Yeah, definitely the more... that is more like a blue-black scam deck that just plays a one of Archon and a one of Archon, one of Big Guy to have like a pretty unfair start. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think like my sideboarding as well, I should definitely reach out to Newton about that one. Because like Thoughtseize on the play doesn't seem too bad to have like a good idea of how you need to navigate the early turns. If you can take an Entomb, then obviously turning off that is pretty strong. Pretty sweet hand. Pretty happy to keep this. Hey Panda, welcome. Hope you're well. Okay. Pretty happy to forest into once. I actually don't mind the Noble here as it allows us to potentially turn to Springheart and then fetch. Hedge Maze. Interesting. Okay. And they kept. Saga. I can only assume because they're a Saga deck and like here they're not going to be a Daze deck. Ah, okay. I guess with Cradle, like it's not over. Do I want to bestow? We can try. Boyd, welcome. Hope you're well. So Delighted Halfling, this is probably a deck that's playing both Nadu, which is a card you'll want to look up, and also Teferi, Time Reveler. I'm also happy just to fetch here. Probably for Mortuary. And try to find either Cradle or Green Suns. Cradle, Green Suns, or Natural Order. 1, 2, 3. The fetch isn't too bad as it would allow us to potentially cast Endurance and Reclaimer, but I think 3 mana, like we kind of have to have the Windswept to be able to Natural Order, but this does kind of take a turn off us from finding Natural Order. So we get to untap, draw a random card, and then at worst we're playing both Arbor and Reclaimer, which isn't too bad. So I actually think I'm going to bin this. Yeah, Nadu is shenanigans. Geralf's Messenger is insane. That's why it's like a $10 card now. I wonder if they think we're a Nadu deck, because we do have, you know, obviously Nantuko and obviously blue mana here, so potentially they're a little bit worried about, are they going to combo off faster than us? Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oof. Definitely playing this. That's very true. Yeah, getting around that is really nice. So it's between Wight or Reclaimer. I think Wight's just a little bit better as it's sacrifice a creature. I mean, it's Cradle comes in tapped off both of these. Once Upon a Time wouldn't be too bad either, because once is 2 mana. If we find Cradle, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then pitch Endurance, or even we can play Reclaimer off Dryad Arbor. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4, 6, 7. Pitch Endurance to Endurance is 8 for Hoof. If they float a mana, it's quite telling here. All right, I'm gonna get a jumper. Well, okay. Yeah, not that after all. So we do have Wight to go and find like end step talons. When does what's phasing? I think they come back in upkeep until they automatically phase back in the next untap step. Okay. So I wonder if I should just, doesn't really do anything. Yeah, there's no good time to do it, sadly. The tough thing is obviously Force of Will. which I would assume they've showed. Thanks, Boyd. Swords Plowshares, Green Suns. Okay. I'm not too sure on boarding. I do like the Fatal Pushes. I don't mind Collector Ouphe and Thoughtseize potentially. But that's a lot of cards. Like, I don't think the endurances are needed. Also, one thing to note is that last game I said that, oh yeah, Vexing Bauble's great because it means they can't force your endurance. But it also means you can't cast your endurance for its evoke cost. Well, you can, but it gets countered. So that was also kind of telling my opponent that they can't, like, they don't have to play around endurance, which is pretty poor. I would assume they're running Thassa's Oracle. Just the casual 21. But yeah, I would say game one against this deck, you really need to have either that really early natural order or some sort of grist. A play where grist is actually relevant. I don't mind Saga, but I would say that I'm biased because I've always been a Wasteland player. Generally, yeah. I think so. All right. It's a tough one. So I think there are 4 free slots here in the endurances. I think Springheart might just be a bit too fair here. Like maybe it's worth having 1. I like the pushes. I don't mind the Thoughtseizers. Force of Vigor is also pretty interesting, and also Collector Ouphe is probably just better than a Springheart. And then I definitely like 3 endurances for the 3 pushes. Maybe 2 Thoughtseize. Maybe Force of Vigor is just needed. Bog can most likely come out. We did see Uro, but I don't think that's the biggest issue. Like, it could be something like that. I wonder if they're a Veil deck. Push tough once Nadu's in play because they get a trigger off it, which means it just replaces itself, typically, any creature. I don't mind having 1 force, and then it's probably just 2 Thoughtseizes. But tricky. Big shout out to Hallow Newton, who I know has a really good sideboard guide on his Patreon. I think this is just a little bit too land heavy. We can bottom this. But what's this doing? Like, turn 1 Mana Dork, potentially turn 2 Wight. That would mean the Mana Dork would have to be a ignobled. Yeah, I think it's about card quality. And this is probably it. Keep this, bottom, and then bottom. And then we have, like, try to get to natural order ASAP. Okay. Let's go for Bayou into Ignobled. Opponent's also a fan, which is very cool. Always appreciate that. I almost like emptying my hand here. Just to get to that 4 mana. I don't think there's any creature here to worry about. Like a flash effect. Look. We did put ourselves in this position, so... Nice. We have a land drop to make, so like Fatal Push would be kind of cool here. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. Okay, like a stifle effect. At least you have a clock on board. chose to keep. Most likely another swords. Okay. Interesting. So there are options here. I think we just play the Ouphe as like worst case is Nadu into Shuko. So I think I'd rather like we already have a good threat. They did shuffle with the Ponder though, so they obviously drew something they liked. Okay, that's good for us. It's nice that they have a Delighted Halfling as well, because like when we did Natural Order, it meant they couldn't have Containment Priest or something to that effect. Because I believe they had Trop open with Delighted Halfling. That was a shuffle. Okay. Attack first. I think we are just emptying our hand this turn as well. I don't think it's worth, say, holding up Windswept Heath as if it's a removal spell. I think I'd rather have access to the Mortuary to make sure we can try to maybe draw live if they have a blocker. We can also phase out a blocker, which is nice. Two life is also relevant if they have both a fetch and then also a force in hand. They can only do one. Okay, happy to see Uro, honestly. That is the legendary 1 green blue creature that I'm not afraid of. Four cards, 3 mana. Although they could play another land, so they still do have access to like Nadu and Nomads, but they don't. Okay. because we have the Ouphe, I kind of want to take out the Force of Vigor on the draw, but I think it's a necessary evil. I think we're just going to run this back. Like, Thoughtseizer's not as great on the draw, but I think I'm happy to seeing where this goes. Hey, Expos, thank you very much. This is a one-lander, but it has a nice bit of interaction while also doing exactly what we want to do and build out our creatures, so I think here I'd love to see like a turn 1 Ponder, then we have turn 1 Bayou Noble, and then turn 2 if they play a creature or something, we can obviously Reclaimer and Fatal Push, which is pretty gnarly. It's pretty happy to keep this. Yeah, I would love to see, I did see Matt Soul post in Discord, I believe. All right. So they could be holding up the Stifle land, but we can't, or the like Stifle effect, but we can't really do much there. They don't, which is really nice. Maybe it isn't a Stifle. Something Consignment? I forgot the name of it. I mean, we get to double spell next, we get to triple spell next turn, which is pretty nice. Consign to memory, thank you. Okay. Okay. I do want to push this. But sadly can't do both push and Wight. I think I'm happy to play the Hierarch. Then play the Cradle, then play the push. Play the Cradle. Wow, they're going to force it. They have one card left. It has to be Nadu. I think Nadu is the only card that they would force because then Nadu replaces itself anyway. No. Okay. Maybe Safekeeper here. Another halfling. Okay. Attacks first. Hit a halfling. Play Wight. Play Reclaimer. Play a land. They're down to 0 cards, which is great. This is obviously a situation where Thoughtseize can be a little bit awkward. But I think you're just attacking with the Ouphe and then holding up the Wight and the Reclaimer. I think attacking for 4 is better than attacking with the Wight here. We also have Talons to change things up a little bit. Yeah, Lair's a little bit awkward. I guess double Lair is actually quite good because in response to the trigger of like, I think with double Lair, in response to Nadu or Green Suns, you remove Nomads, and then in your upkeep with the trigger on the stack, you remove the Nadu, and then they're not in play at the same time. All right, how do we win here? They're at 10, they have 2 blockers. Let's have a quick look. Ooh, Lair? Okay. I think we put them in a position where they have to block is best. And I think at this spot, exactly, especially with 1 card, the Ouphe isn't doing too much other than being an attacker. So actually maybe it's worth just getting rid of a Hierarch here, because at least these can attack. Yeah, so let's add a mana. Get rid of this. Go and get Lair. And then turn one of these buys into Mortuary to make sure we're drawing live off the top. Like Natural Order for Hoof would be pretty sweet. A lot of good hits. Green Suns would be interesting. There it is. Put on top. Okay. So 4 mana. I mean, we don't even have to activate the Lair, to be fair. But we can. Make it a 1/1. Yeah. Craterhoof. Trigger. Nice. Nice. Very cool. Back on the board. Very fortunate. To be fair, like, opponent went to 5 and didn't really have too much going on, so... Nadu pretty tough. Really tough to interact with. Like, Aethersworn Canonist, potentially. Harsh Mentor is another hate bear that sees play in Modern. I was thinking of like a kind of aggressive Mardu deck with Ajani, Cabal Therapy, because I like the interaction there, Bombardiers, but also Price of Progress. That could be pretty sweet against a Nadu deck, but also Nadu decks are most likely playing Force of Will and drawing into Force of Will, or, you know, getting to Force of Will in hand most of the time, so maybe price isn't where you want to be. Burning Tree Shaman, nice, love it. Burning Tree Shaman is a really good one. For anyone who isn't aware, Burning Tree Shaman is whenever a player plays an activated ability that isn't a mana ability, deals 1 damage to that player. And it's a 3/4 for 3. Sadly, the mana in this hand is a little bit off, so apologies. Happy to keep this and bottom the Dryad Arbor. That's pretty funny. Interesting. I thought they might have been taking the Wight and leaving us with the Endurance because they had a Daze line with Animate Dead. Oh, sorry, with Reanimate, but obviously they don't. But maybe Endurance is just a little bit easier to play around. The Grizzle's quite scary. I will admit that. Reclaimer is a pretty fantastic draw because it turns on the ability for us to get Bojuka Bog, but also keep the Endurance and green card in our hand. I mean, we have to try. Wow. I did not see this happening. Okay. Wow. Maybe they just felt like they had to go for it, or maybe they have it just again in their hand. Very interesting. Here, I'm pretty happy just to fetch before they can Wasteland me, so I can't activate the Reclaimer. And probably just get the other Bayou. Because I think at this point we're just going to be getting under Mortuary. Really want to see a creature here. A 1-drop would be quite nice. Lair, not what we're looking for. They allow us to untap as well, which is quite nice of our opponent. I think just to make land drops as well, I'm happy to play Talon here. And then pass with potentially Endurance open. Once open, Reclaim open. Be very interesting if they wastelanded us here and like forced us to potentially think about using Reclaimer. Frog's fine. They have 2 cards left. I don't mind just playing the Endurance and attacking. I don't want to attack with both because I do want to hold up Reclaimer's ability for Bojuka Bog. But I don't mind trying to get some sort of threat into play. I guess I don't think they're on Murktide, so I don't think it's actually worth hitting them, but I might as well. Actually, I will because of the flying. Makes sense. That wasteland's still open, so pretty happy with that. Okay. Now it's a little bit of a tricky one because they have 2 cards. They have Entomb into Reanimate or Animate Dead. That's obviously tough. We could once into a 4th land, play the land, hold up Reclaimer. But if we once for 2 mana, play the land, and then they wasteland us in end step, we obviously can't then hold up the Reclaimer. So I think here we just have to pass, and then potentially hold up once for the following turn. Interesting. Three cards for them. I think we float the mana and see what happens. Because this could be them trying to get us to tap off the Reclaimer. It could also be they drew another Wasteland. So I'm happy just to play it a little bit safe here. Probably turn Talent into Cradle here. Interesting, they're attacking. I'm happy to block and hold up the other Talons. Discard Force. Discard Entomb. Do they discard the last card? They do, wow. Interesting. So we do see here that they did have Entomb and Reanimate. So what they were obviously trying to do was wasteland us. We then use the Reclaimer just to save the land, but then they can obviously Entomb Reanimate after. Sack a Talons, get a Talons. That's true. I could have definitely done it in response to the last one to make sure this doesn't happen. But I mean, that is discarded 3 cards. So we're pretty happy now. Sorry, black this. There we go. Second Talon's coming in clutch. Interesting, they get in. We do have a lethal, so they must have a blocker here or some sort of interaction. Chose to not shuffle. I don't think it's worth using once here. They could have Bowmaster, I guess, but that's not great. Petty theft. Okay. Hey DJ, welcome. Favorite Nadu deck? I didn't mind like BANT Maverick featuring Nadu, but I found that against the dedicated Nadu decks, it was just outclassed. It was a deck playing Nadu, it wasn't a Nadu deck. I think it's the best way to put it. I think here we just bog them so they can't give this flying. And then recast the Wight. Days. That's fine. They have double days? No. Interesting. Because I could have discarded the days to the frog so it's bigger than the Wight. They obviously can still do that, but then if they attack, we then have two attackers, so... Very nice. Ah, interesting. Okay. I don't mind the pushes. I don't mind the fairy. I don't think the baubles are tough because of the endurances. But I feel like they're kind of a necessary evil. I'm not too sure. I don't mind keeping Nantuko as a Green Sun's target here. Going wide is okay, but it doesn't do anything against the Entomb, Grizzlebrand, or Atraxa, or if they're playing Archon. I assume they're just playing the Grizzle. It doesn't do much against the Flying Frog. Yeah, maybe we just keep the Atraxa. It's tricky as well because if they have a frog plan with a few cards that get hit by Vexing Bauble, they can just discard them and then obviously grow the frog. So that's where Fatal Push is quite nice. Maybe on the draw, I don't want them. I don't mind going down on a Noble. Keeping the Ignobles because we do have more black sources or black spells post-board. But kind of want to stay true to just like natural order with a little bit of interaction. Yeah, Bauble is pretty strong. Yeah, maybe I should. Pretty happy to mulligan the Dryad Arbor hand. Okay, this actually has a bit of interaction with it, which is nice. Like interaction and a bit of endgame with the natural order. This is always a tough one because, like, I kind of feel like we just let this resolve, give them the 3-2, let them have the discard, but then at least hold one more card than we would have. Interesting. Happy to take the 3 and probably just push in end step. I think this is fine. I think here is just Dryad Arbor pass, then try to get towards natural order. One card on top. Kinda have to just go for Bog now. We have 2 turns. Yes, it's white. I'm going to assume they're banning grief and they're slowly moving it out of the the client. Or at least I hope. Pretty awkward. I guess we make them discard and then we just keep a land to hopefully draw into natural order. But then they still just have grief. So it'd have to be natural order into land and 1 mana creature. Three, we don't have a way to gain life. Yeah. do want to play the baubles. I'm going to take out the Springheart, I think. I just don't think it lines up well enough. And then it's probably a Wight at 2 mana. Tricky butt. Wow. This doesn't do a whole lot against Grief other than just go like into Exalted mode. I guess we keep this and put back the Grist. I'd rather the Grist not be hit by, obviously, Reanimate. But I feel like we might just have to go for turn 1 acceleration. Okay. Dryad Arbor into Cradle. No shuffle. I guess we could also just Mortuary. Maybe Mortuary's better here. It's tricky because of our reliance on creatures for the Cradle, so I think it's actually Dryad Arbor here. Because if we get Mortuary... Yeah. There's only so many lands left in the deck. But I feel like we have to work towards natural order, and that means keeping Cradle online for as long as possible. Okay. Two, three, four. Probably go for Grist here. Force. Interesting they push when, like, Wasteland does answer Dryad Arbor as well, but potentially they're happy just to Wasteland Cradle if that comes up. Interesting. They have no cards. Talon. I think we might as well play this. Might as well hit this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get in. They chose to shuffle. It's good for us. Interesting. I think in this case, I'm happy just to attack with Noble, hold up Endurance. I have one card left. Nice. Very cool. All right, let's go for the 4-1. Deck's been cool. I think obviously being a novice to the deck, and I think a novice is a perfect tag. Sideboarding. Knowing how to dilute the deck when sideboarding is a big one. Unlike Maverick, you don't have too many silver bullets where it's easy to take out, say, Collector Ouphe against elves and things like that. So, yes. It's a little bit slow with the Dryad Arbor, but if this was a 6, I would probably keep this. So I'm happy to see how this goes. I think I'm also happy to lead on Bog into Reclaimer. Makes the hand quite good against grief. Oh, one stick. Interesting. If this is the mirror, I don't mind trying to green suns for grief as soon as possible. Probably going for mana first. Guess we'll see what this shows. Because once is now in a few decks. I kind of hope it's like another Reliquary that we see. Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay. Ah. Wow. Okay. I guess here it's just going to be Lair into hold up. Is it that great if we... I was going to say phase this out, but I think I'd rather go towards... Actually, maybe even the... Yeah, I think we go for the Yeah, honestly, it could just be trying to get towards the other Dryad Arbor, play the other Reclaimer, and this way we have a way to like phase this out potentially. It having Vigilance is pretty brutal. Hey, thanks, Newton. That's a... Yeah, it's a really good thing to know about. My reasoning for the turn 1 Reclaimer was that it leaves my hand as double Green Suns, and against what in the blind I would just assume is a Grief deck. I didn't think it was too bad. But the ability to ramp is obviously quite nice as well. This looks to be green-red. It's like a big Morlock. Fury. Yeah, like we can Green Suns for Grist, but we're taking 5, 10, 14, so we have to block next turn. Like, we can try to just go towards Atraxa, I guess, off Natural Order. What I should have done there, apologies. I should have definitely probably Green Sunned for the enchantment creature and then played the Dryad Arbor to get the extra creature. Yeah. Go to 9. And I guess we can just chump the Underground. Oof. Okay. Push seems a little bit too slow. Vigors seem interesting, like Chalice on the play for 0. I don't mind the baubles on the play. Endurance as a flash creature does have some play to it. I don't mind having some number of push as just a way to interact. Ouphe is a tough one because, like, if they have the Chrome Moxes in play, Fury's still a pretty nice out for them. Chalice is pretty interesting on 0, but really only stops the Chrome Moxen. The Bog can probably come out. Maybe it's worth having an extra push. Caesar's a tough one. Yeah, maybe Moon. Moon isn't too bad because we have Reclaimers and 2 basics plus also so many mana dorks. Caesar's tough because they can run out of cards really quickly as well. They could keep a 6 where it's just a bunch of mana and a turn 1 creature. Maybe I don't mind having a Vigor in there. But really just want to try to get to natural order ASAP. Okay. I don't mind this. We can go Verdant into basic forest and then Bauble just to turn off Moxen, as much as I would love to play Noble here. Don't believe that does anything. We do get to phase out this creature next, which isn't too bad. But yeah, the double talons is a little bit tough on mana. Cast this, play this, trigger, phase this out. I think getting... Is it worth it? Yeah, I think so. It sets us up next turn to get multiple Nantukus down. But I think these starts are just too strong. They can throw them with bombardiers. Interesting, they're allowing us to block. Ah, it's got menace, that's why. Yeah, if I did think that initiative would be in the metagame, I would think about Snuff, but if the game was like this, then Snuff's not online anyway. Yeah. Tough. Well, it's nice to finish with a positive record for a new deck. Deck was sweet, honestly. The grief decks are obviously tough, but I think you just have to kind of like play through the early turns because you do have obviously natural order to hopefully finish them off with. Springheart was sweet. We didn't really see the Grist, I don't think, in any game, so that didn't really matter. The reason that I went with the pushes over Snuff Out was obviously Psychic Frog and a lot of the grief decks. Having a removal spell for them, I think, that isn't online against Blue-Black Scam as much as you would like is a little bit rough, so the pushes help there. But yeah, it's always nice playing a semi-fair deck with a combo finish. The second Talons came up, which is cool. The mana was pretty tight. Decay is tough as well because it's also something like it doesn't hit, say, grief. There's a few things in the format that it doesn't hit, even like against like the post decks, not hitting the 4 mana Eldrazi is pretty rough. And push being 1 mana, I think is nice. I think at 2 mana it's a little bit too tough. Like go for the throat, like what's that? It can't be an artifact. Destroy target non-artifact. Like go for the throat, maybe. But I do like that. Like at 1 mana, push is alright. Go for the throat at 2 mana, maybe just is too much. That could be it. Hey, thanks. Yeah, the initiative deck. I think this deck just isn't too well versed against. But like even like having the bauble, but then like having to turn it off before you even get to play the Chrome Moxen for the guy, it's pretty tough. Baubles are interesting with the deck with endurance, where endurance is pretty good. But yeah, overall deck was sweet. I think if anything, I'll just run it back as the 75 that Newton has, which I believe is just the extra Nantuko over the Grist. But that's gonna be me. I'm gonna finish up. Big thank you all for coming in and watching. If you want to catch the stream for Newton, definitely check out twitch.tv/HalloNewton. You can also find them on Twitter. I believe if you just Google Hallow Newton, it'll come up with a bunch of his links. I think they also have a link tree. Let me quickly find it. Nice. There we go. But yeah, it was good to get a few good games in with Cradle, because I'd love to come back to it a bit more often. Nice. I can see that Matt is streaming, so I'm going to raid them. A big thank you once again. Catch you next time. Enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you soon.